Yeah, the late great David Foster Wallace, who used to teach just down the road from us, if you take Route 47, Illinois State University. And in fact, I'm proud to mention that I taught right alongside him just for a year, way back when. Wallace laughed with Kafka. As he writes in this little late edition to your readings for the week, I don't really expect you to read it, but you're certainly welcome to. And I listed it on the website under content. He writes, another handicap, even for gifted students, is that unlike, say, Joyce's or Pound's, the exformative associations Kafka's work creates are not intertextual or even historical. Kafka's evocations are, rather, unconscious and almost sub-archetypal. The little kid stuff. The little kid stuff. You just read a little comic there from Calvin and Hobbes. The little kid stuff from which myths derive, those Kafka dreams. This is why we tend to call even his weirdest, most Kafka dreamiest stories nightmarish rather than surreal. Not to mention that the particular sort of funniness Kafka deploys is deeply alien to kids whose neural resonances are American. The fact is that Kafka's humor has almost none of the particular forms and codes of contemporary U.S. amusement. And Wallace goes on. I'm going to let you read the rest of his passage here on your own, right? And, just still stop the film, right? And read the rest of it if you'd like. It's actually a wonderful little comment. I think it's more a comment on, on us, on Americans, than it is a comment in American humor than I think it is a comment on Kafka. But I think you would find it very interesting. So I'm going to let you do that, and then please move on.
Well, this video's business, theme versus topic with plot. And if we talk about plot, we talk about story, don't we? With plot, story 2 thrown into the mix. Dulce. Theme is, quote, the general or overarching meaning of the story. Joseph, quoting Mays, the Norton editor, theme can be described as the moral of a story. It is what we can learn from the story and what we can really think about after it is done. Though a theme, this is a quote from Mays, though a theme is specific in the sense that it is a complete idea or statement rather than a topic, it is nonetheless a general idea rather than one that describes the character's plot or settings unique to one story. Absolutely. Another way of putting the same point. The topic is what we get in hand when, moving beyond mere story, we have begun working out the plot. We have that moment. Oh, so this is what the story is about. It's about loneliness, let us say. Number 2, on the other hand, we're running out of hands, aren't we? On the other hand, the theme is what we have in hand when, having moved past mere story to plot, we have finished working out the plot. Oh, so this is what the story, plot, author text, is saying about or on the topic of, say, loneliness. Yes, the topic is what the story is about. The theme, what it says about what it is about. I want to repeat that. The topic is what the story is about. The theme of the story, is what the story says about what it is about. Let's say it's about loneliness. Maybe what it's saying about loneliness is something as simple as there's a lot of it. There's more of it than you think. Maybe it's saying something about where loneliness comes from, why it is that people become lonely. Maybe it says something about the survivability of loneliness. Maybe it is saying something akin to loneliness is survivable, but it's a tough process to survive it. It's easy to confuse theme and topic. One could argue that Oxford has done so in listing a topic as one meaning of theme, as quoted by John A. Oxford is correct that the term is sometimes used in this broader sense. You'll hear this in music. Speak of a certain theme, which means a kind of collection of notes in a certain order. which recurs over the course of a symphony, for example. But most specifically, literary discussion or literary critical discussion, the distinction holds. Joseph again, quote, I believe the theme in Franz Kafka's Hunger Artist is the corruption of human relationships. I do too. Rather, I think that is one possible theme one may formulate from a careful reading of the story. Careful attention to its plot. Joseph indeed gets into the details of the plot. But the form of the statement, the way it is put, makes it sound as if it were a statement of topic. Quote, the corruption of human relationships. That phrase makes us want to ask, what about it? What about it, corruption? If Joseph had said it's about human relationships, that's the topic. Kafka's theme, on the other hand, is how corrupt so many of them are, even at their most vital. For example, when they are family relationships. Then we would clearly have a theme in hand. Nolan, theme is defined as a main idea or an underlying meaning of a literary work. One of the themes in A Hunger Artist is the tendency of society to overlook the problems of others. Again, well said. But again, that sounds as if a good statement of topic as a theme. As good a statement of topic as a theme, perhaps better. Clarify, the topic, our social life. The theme, our social life, our life in society, is characterized by a habitual want of sympathy, a habitual and selfish refusal even to recognize human suffering unless it is our own. The former is what Kafka's story is about. The latter, what it is saying about what it is about. Showing how the Hunger Artist has ever been and remains, quote, in search of fame. John Aubert and Julia, quote, agree that the theme of the story is the harmful effects of pride. Well said. The topic is pride. The theme, pride has harmful effects. Notice how a statement of topic, go back to Mays's characterization of theme, and you have that same exact word showing up. Note how a statement of topic usually takes the form of a word or phrase. The statement of theme usually takes the form of a statement. That's what you see according to Mays. A statement of topic usually takes the form of a word or a phrase. Alienation, the word. What was Joseph's? Corruption of human relationships. Right, that's a phrase. The statement of theme usually takes the form of a declarative. Something is predicated of the topic. Human relationships, they're bad. Right? Human relationships, they're corrupt. Alienation, it is prevalent. Kafka predicates harmful effects of pride. Topic of the story, human pride. Okay? Theme of the story, pride's harmful effects. Pride has harmful effects. Dolce gets into one of Kafka's more elusive themes, I want to say in closing. Quote, the toxic relationship that artists can develop with their audience. Dolce is making sense of the title, the topic, the artist's relationship to his or her audience. The theme, how surprisingly toxic it can be. Artists often develop a split between themselves and their audiences to the degree that the purer the artist, according to Kafka's story, The Hunger Artist, the more his only satisfying audience becomes he himself and he alone. Note how Dolce works beyond story and through plot details to approach this more specific sense of the work's theme. Okay, so what about the metamorphosis? What is the metamorphosis about, which is the other story by Kafka that I had you read? What's its topics, or its topic, plural, its topics? We can have more than one topic. What does it say about what it is about? What is its theme? Themes. We can have more than one theme. We can have, as one of you quotes down below, we can have sub-themes, according to Mays, and I think that's exactly correct. Julia implies the topic as she notes the theme. Quote, the theme of the metamorphosis is alienation. On this formulation, the topic is human relationships. The theme is what, of course, Kafka is saying about human relationships, which is too often or too many are alienated. That's how we turn that phrase, or that term, alienation, the statement of that term, into a statement of theme. Audra adds great specificity while agreeing with Julia. Quote, the metamorphosis explores the idea that a person alienated from his or her work, and therefore from social value, will not only be treated like vermin, but see themselves as it too. Note how Audra specifies the turning point, his sister's rejection of him. The decision that he must disappear was one that he comes to hold to even more strongly than his sister, if that were possible. And that's a quote from Kafka. Note how for Audra, the topic is less alienation than work. The theme, to put it colloquially, why can I not say that word? You better not hate your job. If you do, you'll end up hating, even dehumanizing, yourself, having been prompted by your significant others to do so. Note how close Audra comes to delineating what I'm calling significant others, one's family, in this case, as the topic. Julia, perhaps even more than he alienated himself from his family, quote, his family alienated him. Again, the family is the topic. What would the theme be? Families alienate members of their families. Much more so, to a shocking degree more than you might imagine. Emily broadens a bit. She mentions, quote, the limits of sympathy more generally. Human sympathy, not just family sympathy. Topic, human sympathy. Theme, for Kafka, it's shockingly limited. Amira believes, quote, the theme of the metamorphosis is change. Again, this sounds like a topic. But Amira, as she explores the plot, implies Kafka's theme. Change, it's hard. We often do not handle it well. We resist it, and then it overwhelms. We don't so much change as wake up and find we have changed. Montserrat, it's a story about Kafka's metamorphosis. Responsibility. Sounds like a statement of topic, doesn't it? But Montserrat goes on to develop her claim about the theme, right? Develop a claim about the topic, to delineate Kafka's own statement, okay, with respect to the topic, what Kafka has to say about what the story's about. It's about responsibility. What does it say about it? What is Kafka saying in the story about it? He's saying, this is according to Montserrat, and I think she's on target, how burdensome it can be. There's the thing. And how, as she develops the idea, and I thought she did so very well, how shrugging it off, this burden of responsibility, having unwisely taken on too much, we become the burden. Gregor becomes a burden to everyone, not just financially, but emotionally. When you look at the logic of the story, it makes you feel that it's a big mistake to take too much upon yourself. Very bad things happen, especially you, when you have done so. Katrina, quote, smaller themes, topics in the metamorphosis include being dependent on family members. We've already gotten into this question of the family up above, have we not? Notice how Katrina has narrowed slightly this topic, dependency on family, as opposed to just merely family. She also mentions the mind and body disconnect, which I think is interesting. And money woes, struggling with money. She goes on to say, however, the most important theme, and here we move from sub-themes to the larger overarching theme, is a discussion on what gives a human humanity. And I found this to be profound on her part, this insight. Kafka sets out to define the human, or redefine, maybe challenge our existing concepts of human nature. Something that Katrina herself says, that he's still a human being inside. It's interesting. That's, in fact, to go back to what Audra was saying, that would seem to be the moment when that is challenged, when in fact that's overturned, this notion that despite his appearance, despite his conduct, Gregor is still a human being inside. That would seem to be challenged when the sister gives up on the idea. Because as we have seen, when the sister gives up on the idea, we're going to get into this a little bit in this note down below. When his sister gives up on the idea, he gives up on the idea. And it's kind of remarkable. I mean, the sister puts up some resistance to the notion that he is not a human being, but she ends up thinking that he's not a human being. He ends up thinking he's not a human being, right? And it's kind of surprising, despite that little bit of, that it's so little resistance that she puts up finally, when you consider this as her dear brother. One of the reasons you will recall he is working so hard at his job is to put her into music school and let her become the artist, the musician, that she wants to be and that she seems to have the talent to become. So I see all of this as pointing in the direction of a reconception, how easy it is for her, despite perhaps her appreciation of her brother's personal interest in her career and the fact that he's her brother, he's in the family, how easy it is to lose a sense of the humanity of another, and for you to lose the sense of your own humanity. Yet can one remain human inside when on the outside one has become other than such? Or is human nature itself shockingly mutable, changeable, and therefore, I think we could infer fragile, the fragility of human nature, how easily it is twisted into some new form. All right, I mentioned getting into a note. I would like you to note the acute plot summary. This is offered by Audra. Quote, thought this was well done. His family originally offers some support, but their mood is already darkened by the loss of his income. A quote follows. In the course of that very first day, Gregor's father explained the family's financial position and prospects to both his mother and his sister. As they pawn possessions and take in boarders to make ends meet, they become increasingly more frustrated with Gregor, burdened by looking after an unproductive member of the household, and suffering their own alienation. They sink into caregiver burnout. Wonderful phrase. Caregiver burnout and their sadness. Quote, his sister no longer took care to bring him what might especially please him. As they collapse under the burden, they only find comfort in knowing the being they were removing from their lives is not the person they knew. Quote, if this were Gregory, he would have realized long ago that human beings cannot live with such a creature, and he'd have gone away on his own accord. That's, of course, what the sister has to say. All this is courtesy, Audra. I will call your attention, if you will, to the fact that Audra gets into cause and effect as she goes about providing the summary. Therefore, I would call it a plot summary as opposed to what? A mere story summary, which would be a blow-by-blow report on what happened without a lot of attention. This is from a previous video. Of course, we get into this in some length. Without a lot of attention to cause and effect, to causality and effectuality, how one thing brings about another, how one thing is led to by another. Note the new topic. I wanted to point this out before we left behind this exemplary act of plot summary. Note the new topic that emerges here in the course of the good plot summary. Unproductivity shows up as a theme. A topic, unproductivity. As if Gregor were a sort of latter-day Bartleby refusing to work. You see what the consequences are. Note Gabrielle's acute sense of Kafka's critique of capitalism and class, which of course would be, right, one of the ways that that might be brought into focus is we see what happens to someone who in a capitalist society has stopped being productive, okay? Kyron, by the way, mentioned social status, which I think gets us close to this question of class. Those who are judged by a standard of productivity, unproductivity, tend to be the lower members of the lower middle class who are very much subject to the managers, right? We have this character called the manager who comes in and, cajoles Gregor in the opening scene. Here's Gabrielle's statement. As soon as Gregor is no longer useful and able-bodied, his mother, father, sister, and employer abandon him to the confines of this room. Here, this middle or lower middle-class family circle, by the way, Nabokov is into these geometrical figures that help us to define what's going on in the story, and he sees a lot of triangles and triads, but I see a circle. Here, this lower middle-class family circle has been invaded by economic anxieties to the point that family feeling decays, utilitarian values having come to dictate. And I leave it to you to approach that last sentence as a statement of theme, which I think it is. Okay. The topic, of course, being, at some level, the topic of the story is our economic relations with each other. Okay, what it means to live in a world in which, a society in which human relationships have been, as I put it up above, or as I've just put it, have been invaded or contaminated, infiltrated, by economic motives, right? And he seems to be very interested in that issue, and I thought that was nicely noted by you guys. Finally, let's introduce a third term for the week. really a fourth term. Theme, topic, issue. The theme, one theme of the Metamorphosis, Kafka's topic being change, or the human ability to manage change, more specifically. His theme is that ability is severely, shockingly limited. We are much less able to handle change than most of us think. We often do not handle change well. We resist it and then it overwhelms. We don't so much change as wake up and find that we have changed. I'm, of course, repeating some statements from the previous plates. That's the theme. What's the topic? I've already said it, but I'll say it again. Named by one of you, but implied by others, change. Prominent throughout the story was transformation. That's the topic, change. What is the issue? Well, whether or not we can well manage change. That's a good way to put the issue in a whether or not statement. The issue of the story is a question of the story with respect to its topic, what it is about. What does it ask about what it is about? Theme is the answer to that question. It is what it says about what it is about. The topic here being changed, the question here, the issue is, can we accept, deal with it, survive it? That's the issue. That is the issue that the story deals with. It's the issue of, and notice how it's put in a question in interrogative form, or by way of a whether or not, by way of a whether or not statement. Has to do with change. Whether or not we can manage change well. Or can we manage change well? Can we manage change at all? That's a statement of issue as opposed to a statement of either topic or theme. The topic here being changed, the question here, the issue is, can we accept, deal with it, survive it? The topic being changed, the issue is whether we can accept it or whether humans have, according to Kafka, a fundamental dislike of change. Whether when things are at all satisfactory, we'd like them to stay that way, to stay just the way they are, perhaps even ignoring or avoiding and certainly not rising to the challenge of opportunities for self-improvement. Statements of issue often take the form of questions, as I just mentioned, or, as I mentioned, the form of a whether or not statement, which is really a kind of sentence fragment, but that's okay when you're stating an issue. Statements of issue often take the form of questions. A good way to formulate an issue is by way of the formula, whether or not X is, eats, hates, loves, influences, has X connection to, what have you. Why? Whether or not something is something else, or is something something else? That's the question, the interrogative form, as opposed to the whether or not form. Well, this is something we're going to be going back to. It's really pretty fundamental, these distinctions, but they're very important, I think, to a clear and consistent discussion of literature. And they are fundamental building blocks of literary critical discussion. It's to understand the difference between an issue, a topic, and a theme. So they're not going to go away, these blocks. We're going to be building on them throughout the semester, as you will be throughout your careers as undergraduate English majors. I regret that we didn't get around to questions of point of view. I never intended to, of course, because this is already an over 20-minute micro lecture, but I wanted to say that I thought the respondents to the questions on point of view did a splendid job and will be profiting from your insights in the coming weeks because, in fact, we're going back to point of view this coming week, even though there won't be a video this coming week. I think that there may be a video. There will certainly be some commentary and some questions about point of view in the future, and we'll have a chance then to profit from some of your insights. So that's it for today. Take care.